Welcome to this explainer. Okay, so have you ever wondered why you just have this restless, like almost obsessive craving to learn things that seem completely useless to your everyday life? Well, today we're unpacking the psychology behind that exact drive. We're going to explore why your hunger for unnecessary information might actually be one of your mind's greatest hidden strengths. Picture this. It's 3 a.m. You know for a fact you should be sleeping, but instead, you are what? 12 pages deep into a Wikipedia rabbit hole about an obscure 14th century historical event? Or maybe it's some highly niche scientific theory that has absolutely zero to do with your day job? Sound familiar? Honestly, if you've ever felt a pang of guilt for not being productive in those late night moments, well, it turns out you aren't doing anything wrong. Okay, let's dive into this core reframe. Society really loves to label those late night deep dives as mere procrastination, a distraction, or just a massive waste of time. But psychology? Psychology calls it something entirely different. Brain cross-training. You're not wasting time, you're actively optimizing your mind. So it's time to rethink that guilt and recognize it for what it is, a literal cognitive superpower. Section 1. Cognitive cross-training. Why you crave unnecessary information. To really understand how this works, we gotta look at why highly curious minds approach learning differently. See, they don't just read to finish a book or, tick a box on a syllabus. They read to absorb entirely new models of thinking. When your brain jumps wildly between seemingly unrelated subjects, that isn't randomness. It's definitely not a lack of focus. Actually, scratch that. It's the exact opposite. Your brain is actively seeking mental variety. It craves diverse cognitive models, not just a high volume of the same repetitive facts. For example, you might find yourself just deeply engrossed in ancient philosophy on a Tuesday, and then completely shifting gears into computer coding on Wednesday. If you've ever felt a little scattered jumping between topics like these, it really helps to realize this habit isn't a flaw in your attention span at all. It's a feature of a highly dynamic brain. Which brings us to our formal definition. Cognitive cross-training is essentially exposing yourself to different fields to give your mind a wider mental toolbox. It helps you solve problems you haven't even encountered yet. Think about a world-class athlete. A marathon runner doesn't just run, right? They lift weights, they swim, they cycle, they cross-train to build different muscle groups for overall resilience. Well, your brain is doing the exact same thing with information. By exploring diverse fields, you're building these incredible layers of strategic depth for the future. Section 2. The intrinsic curiosity drive. The reward of understanding. So what is the psychological engine powering this intense cross-training? It all comes down to intrinsic curiosity. This is a habit driven entirely by the reward of understanding itself, completely separate from any immediate practical use. And this brilliantly illustrates how a high-functioning mind operates. It values the pure, unadulterated act of learning. You aren't learning the history of metallurgy to forge a sword tomorrow. You're learning it because feeling the puzzle pieces click together in your brain is inherently, incredibly satisfying. The standard approach to learning is almost purely transactional. It's motivated by an immediate, practical use, like learning a skill just to pass a test or score a promotion. But a high-functioning mind, it seeks inherent satisfaction and understanding regardless of the outcome. Contrasting these two approaches really helps reveal just how unique and high-level this pursuit of knowledge truly is. Psychologists actually refer to this state as cognitive play. It's exploring random systems and abstract ideas simply because your brain loves to do it. Just like a kid on a playground, your mind literally needs space to swing from concept to concept. It's fascinating to realize that this isn't about traditional productivity. In a world totally obsessed with grinding and output, giving your brain the cognitive play it desperately craves might be the exact thing that keeps it healthy and sharp. Section 3. Natural-born pattern hunters connecting the dots. All this unnecessary information actually has a profound hidden purpose. Your brain is a natural pattern hunter. It's constantly scanning for connections that others completely miss. But to find those invisible links, it needs raw material. It needs a massive, eclectic library of diverse information to draw from. Your mind actively requires this constant influx of random data to do exactly what it does best: connect the dots. Now, what's really interesting about this is we can actually see this cross-pollination in action in the real world. Because you've built this wide mental toolbox, you can pull a strategy from a seemingly unrelated discipline, like, say, a game of chess, and successfully apply it to solve a complex conflict at work. Or you might borrow a principle from evolutionary biology to perfectly understand a sudden social trend online. It's all about using distant frameworks to solve immediate, real-world issues. When you have a broad range of knowledge, you learn to think in concepts rather than just facts. You completely transcend rote memorization and start seeing the underlying architecture of how the whole world works. The ability to connect these distant dots across vast disciplines is actually one of the absolute clearest signs of high-level intelligence. Section 4. The speed and boredom catch. The price of a fast mind. Now, having this type of cognitive engine isn't always easy, though. It definitely comes with a catch. If you have this type of mind, you probably get bored significantly faster than most people, to the point where repetition feels physically unbearable. And it's important to be super clear here, this is not laziness, it's not a lack of discipline. It's just because your brain processes information incredibly quickly. Once it's extracted the pattern, boom, it's done. Doing it 100 more times feels like absolute torture, because your mind has already moved on. We can actually map this out in 4 quick steps. Step 1, your brain constantly craves complex information. Step 2, once it masters that information, it immediately searches for the next challenge. Why? Well, step 3, to keep its predictive processing engine running smoothly. See, the brain is a prediction machine, and it needs fresh data to stay calibrated. And step 4 is the result, avoiding the terrible feeling of mental stagnation. Without this constant influx of new data, the mind literally starts to feel heavy, sluggish, and completely stuck. Section 5. Unlocking metacognitive IQ. The rarest form of intelligence. So the crucial point is, this all leads us to the ultimate benefit of cognitive cross-training, unlocking metacognitive IQ. This is widely considered the rarest form of intelligence. It's the ability to think about your own thinking. By constantly learning how entirely different systems and fields work, you're doing something remarkable. You are training yourself to question your own assumptions and dynamically adjust your mental strategies. You learn to watch your own mind operate from a distance, analyzing your thoughts as if they were a system to be optimized. You see, you aren't just a trivia machine collecting random facts. You are actively feeding a brilliant brain that simply refuses to stay in a single lane. Because of this cross-training, you're learning to see the world in multidimensional layers that others simply can't perceive. So the next time you're deep in a niche documentary at midnight, hopefully you won't tell yourself you're wasting time ever again. To summarize our core thesis here, let's redefine true cognitive growth. Real growth is not just adding more mindless, productive tasks to a daily checklist. Real growth is having the courage to let intrinsic curiosity lead you to clarity. It's about validating the way your unique, high-speed mind actually works, instead of trying to force it into a standard box. Which leaves me with a question for you, and I genuinely want to know. What is the most unnecessary thing you've researched lately? What abstract, bizarre, or fascinating topic is your brain currently cross-training on? Think about it and let that curiosity keep driving you forward. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep feeding that brilliant mind of yours.